Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on your time zone and when you're watching this. Good morning, afternoon, evening. Again, if you're watching on replay, probably evening, maybe morning. Just wanted to give you a couple of minutes to get settled and logged in before we start. We'll be starting in about 2 minutes or so. And just give you some time to settle in. Grab a pen, some paper if you want it. Don't mind the sirens behind me. It's New York City, totally normal. And we will get started in just a minute or two. So we'll give everybody some time to log on and get settled. And we'll be kicking things off in a couple of minutes. So excited for today's topic. If you want to tell me where you're tuning in from, that's always great to know. You can type it in the comment section and let us know where you're watching from. That's always fun. Like I said, we'll give you another minute or so to get settled and tuned in, get your lunch ready if you happen to be eating lunch with us while you're learning about all sorts of fun stuff. So we'll just give you another minute. All right, we've got Mindy from Chicago, Kelsey, hey Kelsey, Dawn from Cincinnati, Ohio, nice. I don't know, we've had too many Ohios this time, so that's awesome. We are just getting ready to get started. I am super excited for today's topic personally, and hopefully all the sirens will end by the time we kick things off. So we'll just wait another minute or so since we officially start at 1 or 12 or 10 or whenever you're starting this because you are watching it on replay. I do want to say that if anybody wants to hit that share button or host a viewing party, you can do that. If you click share, anybody can watch this. It's open to Pathways grads or non-grads. We always say the more the merrier on these. So if anybody wants to hit that share button and share with us and share with your friends what you're watching, that's always great and always appreciated. I am going to kick things off now, and I have a very exciting announcement. So the Lemonade sessions were created by Pathways to Successful Living and are now being sponsored by a grant from Pathways to a Better World. So that's very exciting news to be sharing with all of you. And for those of you who don't know, Better World is a nonprofit 501c3 organization overseen by a volunteer board of Pathways grads that provides support to people who would like to attend Pathways courses but need financial assistance. And Better World believes that the Lemonade Sessions offers a great value to grads and non-grads alike during these uncertain times when in-person courses are not available. So thank you so much to A Better World for supporting this, and shout out to the Better World board members who are out there watching, and thank you. So for those of you who are new and just joining us, we are on session 7 already, is that right? 8, 9, 10, 11, what day is today? I don't even know. And I am super excited to be doing today's session with Bruce Bloom, who will be joining us and sharing with us today and sort of taking the lead on this. But I do want to say, if this is your first time tuning in, you are in the right place at the right time. You can always go back and watch the first sessions. They are available on this page that you are watching right now. So you don't have to go far to see them. You can check them all out. We've covered a lot of different topics, and so I really, really recommend you go back and watch them if you would like. Also, if you have to go, these will be available for replay, so you can go about your day if you need to leave. Don't stress out. You can always finish watching later. And if you're new to Facebook Live, you can see us, we can't see you. So whatever you are doing or wearing, don't worry about it. We can't see you. We would like to make this participatory though. So anything that you would like to type into the chat feature, go ahead and type it in there. So Mindy already says, hey, Bruce, we miss you. Becky says that's a huge lemon behind you. Yes, they're just growing. I don't know what's happening. So we really want to make this interactive and participatory. And I will kick it off to Bruce after I introduce myself. My name is Taryn. That's pretty much all you need to know. I am a Pathways grad and creative director. I help out with marketing and these lemonade sessions. So any questions you have, you can go ahead and type into the chat box and I will be your voice and convey them to Bruce. So let's kick it off, Bruce, and teach us all about expanding our comfort zones, please.
Thanks, Taryn. So glad to be with all of you. For those of you who are not Pathways grads, if there's any of you in our audience or who watch this after the tape, welcome. And try not to use a lot of jargon from the Pathways seminars or other kinds of things. If there's anything as we're going through today that you don't understand, just type a question in the chat box and Taryn will interrupt. And I'm going to share my desktop because I have some slides that we're going to use.
And I'm going to actually make my first interruption right now because I forgot to mention to those of you who are totally new to Pathways, normally we're in person, but it was founded 35 years ago. And since that time, more than 45,000 people have come through our seminar rooms. And so that is super exciting. And once we are back on the ground and interacting in real life, we'll have those up and running again. And at the end, I'm going to tell you about some exciting new things that are coming for when we are not back in the same room, but still able to participate. So back to you, Bruce.
Thanks, Taryn. Just for those of you who don't know me, my Pathways journey started in 2003 when I did basic seminar, and I learned so much during that first weekend. It blew my mind, and I continued to do all the courses and then come back and staff. And in 2009, I started facilitating. And so I'm in my 11th year of facilitating guest events in the basic seminar. And today we're going to talk about getting outside our comfort zone. One of the key points that we focus in on both in the guest events and in the basic seminar. And we're going to talk a little bit about, and hope you'll share about, how much more challenging that might be in a time when we're sheltering in place and have a hard time getting outside our homes. So this is very interactive. I'm going to share some things from my slides simply so that you have information both now and if you watch this as a recording. And again, if you have any questions that come up at any time, type them in the chat box on Facebook. Taryn will read them and we will answer them before we're done. And some of them might get saved for the Q&A section at the end, but if you need a clarification, just type it in. So today's topic is about comfort zones. And so, when we think about this, what is a comfort zone? So we're going to expand on this later in the presentation, but a comfort zone is a place that we feel that we master something and a place where we feel safe. And so I'd like you just to sort of think of your own comfort zone. And by the way, a comfort zone isn't a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing, right? It's important for us to have a comfort zone so we have some place that we feel like we have mastery. And it also, as we'll talk about today, is a place that can tend to limit us if we just stay in the center of our comfort zone. So type in the chat box some examples of how you feel when you're inside your comfort zone. And again, it's not a good thing or a bad thing. So you can have some feelings that are positive, you can have some feelings that are negative, you can have some feelings that are neutral. But if you go ahead and type those in there, Taryn will read some of those out. And it's funny, my assistant, my partner on these is named Taryn. And at work during the day when I'm working, today I'm not working because I work for a company in England, and today is a bank holiday. So that means everybody is off of work in England. And my partner there is named Karin. So I have Corinne and Turin. So if I get them mixed up, Turin, it's not your fault.
Sorry.
So
I'll
type
have to
some
fight.
examples.
I'll fight Corinne when this is all over.
Yeah.
There can only be one.
I would.
So we've got some examples coming in. Yeah.
Okay.
Fighting would not be within my comfort zone, I don't think.
Okay.
So Terry says she feels safe. Melissa said confident. Kelsey says safe, confident, sometimes stuck or complacent.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Those are all really great examples of how people feel. And the idea of a comfort zone, and when we sort of, when we're in the Pathway seminar, we'll actually draw a picture with you in the center and we'll draw a circle around you. And then we say, anything that's inside that circle is in your comfort zone. And the closer you get to the edge of that circle, the more and more you get to the point where you're at the boundary of your comfort zone. And so when you get up to that edge of the comfort zone, when you're starting to experience some place in your life where you don't feel you have mastery, or where you're unsure of yourself, or where you haven't been very often, what are some examples of the way you feel? What does your body feel like? What's going on for you emotionally? So you can type some examples of that. And the reason that we're asking you to type some examples of those kinds of things is because, again, as we talk about in the Pathway seminar, if you really want to know what's going on with you, check in what's happening with you physically. Like, your body will never lie to you. So if something's going on, we often can sense it in our body. And we have these sort of physical feelings, and we also can translate those into emotional feelings. We start to feel something in our body and we assign an emotional word or phrase to it. So what are some examples of how you feel when you get up at the edge of your comfort zone?
Got a lot of examples. Pouring in. Okay, so anxious, fearful of the unknown, excited, alive. Donna says sick to stomach, head hurts. Nikki says tight, tense, and anxious. Mindy said anxious and scared. Terry says tense, anxious, afraid, sweaty palms. I know for me, I get like a drop in my stomach, and then this urge that's like, you know what you need to do, so just go do it now.
Yes. So those are all great examples. And what's interesting is if you listen to them, there's a mix of emotions that come from feelings. So somebody says, I get anxious, and somebody says, I get excited. And if you think about that, when we're in a place where we are hopeful that something's going to happen and we're looking forward to it, we get that energy inside our body. We label it as excitement. And where we're someplace where we're unsure of ourselves and we're not sure what we want to have happen, we get that same kind of buzzing feeling and we label it anxiety. So it's interesting how we can put a title or a term on the same kind of feeling, depending on whether we have some confidence and some eagerness, or whether we have some, insecurity around that. So this is sort of similar, but in a different way. So think about, as you go through your daily life, how do I tend to carry my comfort zone with me throughout the day? And I sort of can think of this in any number of ways. Like, there's some parts of my comfort zone that I think are like my, like a security blanket that I carry around with me. Some of it, it's like Pigpen on the Peanuts. For those of you that are young enough to have remembered Peanuts comic, he always had, this dirty blanket with him, or maybe that was Linus. I can't remember which one. Sometimes it feels really strong, like a companion animal, or, the dog that's actually pulling me forward. So how do you tend to carry your comfort zone with you throughout the day? And how do you carry it physically? How do you carry it emotionally? Sort of think about that and type in some examples of those things. Turin, what kinds of things are people saying?
Just giving them a second to type. I'll say for me, I actually just ordered a weighted blanket, hoping that would be, now that I think of it, like a physical way I could carry around a comfort zone with me while I'm home.
Yeah, there's all sorts of data that's accumulating about in sleep, how for many people having that kind of a weight on them is very comforting. It's kind of um, if you remember, Native Americans often would swaddle their children, carry them around on their back in a papoose. And, a lot of modern day papooses, we see a lot of adults carrying around children harnessed to them. And that's both great for the parent and for the child to have that physical contact and feel that kind of security.
I've got a couple answers for you. So Donna says, physically, I wear a great outfit.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey says, when I feel confident in the things I do, is how she carries around her comfort zone. And then Storm says, I've actually built a camper van during quarantine, so now I have a comfort zone on wheels, which is awesome.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I dress in colors that make me feel my best. A favorite pair of shoes. I know I'm able to walk taller and think how great my feet feel.
Right.
Yeah.
And if as you think about that, there's things that you can think of during the day to see where you are in this comfort zone and how willing you are to get to the edge of it. There's some days where you don't even want to take a shower or put on, anything that draws any attention to you, or you're out in public and you're just trying to stay as quiet as possible. And then there's other days where, there's a little flamboyance to your, as people said, I wear bright colors, I put on the clothes that tend to make me feel more appealing or more enlivened. And, the same thing about emotionally. So it's easy to think about physically. It's much more challenging, I think, sometimes to think about how we carry our comfort zone around emotionally. But things like whether we speak up or not, whether we ask for what we want or not, whether when something happens that's unexpected, whether we have one of many reactions to it. All those are ways that we're carrying our comfort zone around with us during the day. And part of today's lemonade is to have us be more aware about this, because a comfort zone is so comfortable that we often overlook it or are unaware of the impact that it's having both positively and negatively on us. And so part of today is to start to think in a kind of a more dynamic way, what's going on with my comfort zone, because it'll tell you a lot about what's happening. And for most of us, we're of the mindset that we want to continue to grow and expand, and getting outside our comfort zone is the best way to do that. So let's talk a little bit about what creates our comfort zone. So this is important material that we cover in some of the guest events and some of the other places in Pathways. But there are two words that we sort of talk about regularly, and that is beliefs and behaviors. I'm going to refer to them as the B&B of Pathways. So it's not the bed and breakfast, it's the beliefs and behaviors. And our beliefs and behaviors determine the size of our comfort zone and our ability, nice spelling there, our ability to break through our comfort zone. And it's really important for us to take a look at this, because if we're going to get outside our comfort zone, we need to understand what's holding us in our comfort zone and what has us building it in the first place. So let's take a look at beliefs and behaviors. So when we're born, each of us is born individually, and we have our own natural talents. Each of us is a unique person, and we have these talents that tend to stay with us for our whole life. And each of us have this unique conglomerations of things about how we show up, how we think, what kind of actions we take, how we process our feelings, all sorts of things that are just unique to us. In fact, no two of us are identical. We're kind of our natural talents are like snowflakes. There's billions of them, and yet no two are exactly alike. If we followed, any two people through a course of exactly the same things, they would end up creating much different outcomes just because of our natural talents, the way we ingest, the way we think, the way we absorb, all those things. Now, almost immediately after we're born, our life experiences help us create our beliefs and behaviors. So when we're babies, we're born, we don't have any beliefs or behaviors. We don't really know much about what's going on, but pretty soon after we're born, even unconsciously, we start having these beliefs and behaviors. And you can see this in the little babies who, when they act cute, they get all sorts of support. People coo at them, people hold them, people talk to them in a certain soothing voice. And because of that, they start to say, oh, well, if I want more of this, I should do this thing. And so we start even from almost an unconscious age, before we understand language, before we even know our parts of our own body, that these are our hands or these are our feet. We start to develop these beliefs and behaviors. And the life experiences get laid on top of those. So for some of us, we get really great support early in life that helps us expand these positive beliefs and behaviors, that if I do this, I'll get good support. People will laugh, people will hold me, people will want to be with me. People will talk to me in a soothing voice. Other life situations bring us other kinds of things where there's yelling or isolation or other kinds of things. And we start to have these other beliefs, like maybe I'm not worthy, or maybe I'm not important, or when I speak up, I get yelled at. So maybe it's important for me to stay quiet, or people tell me I'm wrong when I see things my way. And so I either believe that I don't understand the world, or I don't want to share what I'm saying. And these beliefs and behaviors start to build up, and they're not good and bad. We're just using them to cope with all these life experiences. And when we're young and we don't have the knowledge and the security and the experience to be able to manage in these situations any differently, we just pick up these beliefs and behaviors to keep ourselves safe. And it's really important that we have these. The problem is that we tend to solidify these beliefs and behaviors at an early age, before our teenage years. And then we begin to go on and use these solidified beliefs and behaviors later on in life when they don't serve us as well. Some of them serve us great, and I want you to understand, beliefs and behaviors are not a good or a bad thing. They just either help us what we want out of life, or they keep us from getting what we want out of life. And so we're going to examine those kinds of things, because we let our beliefs and behaviors define our comfort zone and our ability to break through our comfort zone. And there's some really purposeful words in here that I want us to understand. So I say we let our beliefs and behaviors, because we actually have total control over this. A belief or a behavior is just something we either think about ourselves or something we do, right? And so we have total control over that. But our beliefs often lie so much in our subconscious or unconscious that we don't even recognize that they're there controlling us. And our behavior seems so standard and rote that we don't think that we can do anything about them. And so we let these beliefs and behaviors, by leaving them in our subconscious and not believing they can change, we let them define our comfort zone. And because of that, we let that define our ability to break through our comfort zone, because we think, oh, I can't do that, or I'm not that kind of person, or my belief is when I've tried that before, I failed because. And so we hold ourselves at the center of our comfort zone in order to, support these beliefs and behaviors. So, as I've said, our beliefs and behaviors aren't right or wrong. They're not good or bad. They're just ways we've used to cope in life. And because they're unconscious, we don't really take control of them. And so we're going to do a couple of exercises today to start to think about these beliefs and behaviors and maybe begin to uncover them so that we can take more control of them instead of letting them control us. Really important about our behaviors is that we believe behaviors are permanent, that people can't change. And yet we have lots of experiences in life that people can change, especially us. We can change. And it's so interesting. I don't know how many of you have experienced this, but I grew up in a household where there were two ways to do things: my mom's way and the wrong way, right? And so I learned, one of my earliest beliefs was that I had to be perfect in order to be loved, because whenever I wasn't perfect, I got yelled at. And so one of the behaviors that I adopted as a young child was to really listen intently and try to determine what would make my mother happy. Because when my mother was happy, life was good. And when my mother was unhappy, life was bad. And I carried that belief and that behavior into my life. So my belief that I had to be perfect. So in school, I was a straight A student no matter what it took, because if I wasn't straight A's, I wasn't going to be accepted. My teachers would think I was a failure. And my behavior, which was to try and anticipate what other people would want to be happy, had me turning into a caretaker. And so for all my years until I went to Pathways and started learning this stuff, I had that belief and behavior really dominated my life. And so I had what looked like an incredibly successful life on the outside. Because I strove to be for perfection all the time, I was very accomplished. And I had a lot of happy people around me because I was caretaking them and doing all sorts of stuff. But inside, I was so stressed out and so miserable. And so I felt like I was never taken care of. And I never asked for anything I needed because that might inconvenience somebody else. And so on the outside, I looked like I had a great life. And on the inside, I was just really suffering. And thank God I finally did the Pathway seminars and learned to start to unravel those behaviors and untie those beliefs and begin to substitute them with other kinds of things. So right now, let's take some examples from you. Let's start with beliefs and behaviors that support you in getting what you want out of life. So, think about the things that you have that are really successful for you. Relationships that are successful, occupations or hobbies that are successful, things about your physical nature, things about your financial situation, things about your home life or the physical places that you are, and start to share some examples about beliefs, the things that I think about myself or that I think about the world, and behaviors that you have, the things that I do or the things that I don't do. Because sometimes, not having a behavior, so I don't smoke anymore, or, I don't snack all day, can be behaviors that are really important in helping you get what you want out of life. So, Turin, let's know if we have any examples that people are sharing of this.
Okay, great. Well, people are typing things and I'll share something of mine. So one belief or behavior that I have is I believe that I am a super hard worker. And that has started since I was a kid. And that was what I got as feedback on my report cards and all of that, and has definitely carried into adulthood and served me really well in my career.
Great.
Yeah.
Any examples popping up?
Not yet, but we'll give people a second to type some things out for us.
Yeah, it's really important for us to think about beliefs and behaviors that are really positive and that help us to get the things we want out of life. And the reason is, and we'll do an assignment later where you start to write down some of these things, but it's so important to think about those kinds of things as we're thinking about getting outside our comfort zone, because beliefs and behaviors that help you get what you want in one situation are likely to be the kinds of beliefs and behaviors that can help you get what you want out of other situations. And so a big part of what we do in Pathways and what we're trying to do as part of this lemonade is to really start to uncover those things and think about them, because once we're conscious about them, then we can take advantage of them or do something about them.
Got a lot of answers for you now.
Okay.
Great. So Becky said, I can learn to do anything. Sue
Great.
says, I'm analytical and I always try to better myself.
Great.
Nikki says, I believe sleep has a great impact on my life, so now I prioritize it. At one time, I did not and saw that impact. Storm said, I believe that because I didn't finish uni, that I hadn't succeeded in life and wasn't smart. And Donna says, I'm great with people. I care for others' happiness.
Great. And so, in thinking about these things, it's important for us to see that beliefs and behaviors aren't good or bad. They just either help us get to what we want out of life, or they keep us from getting what we want out of life. And we're in control of what those beliefs and behaviors are. So let's go back to, let's go back to the slides again. And here we are. So now we want to share some examples of beliefs and behaviors that keep us from getting what we want out of life. Storm shared one about, not finishing university, and therefore, she thinks that that's a behavior that is keeping her from getting what she wants out of life. And it's so interesting when we start to uncover these beliefs and behaviors. First of all, how important it is to realize how subconscious or unconscious these are, and yet how much we let them control who we are and how we show up in life, and how far we can get outside of our comfort zone to get the things that we want out of life. The second thing is, once we become aware of them, we really do have the opportunity to replace them, if they're not serving us well, with other kinds of beliefs and behaviors. And we're going to talk in a little while about how we actively change these beliefs and behaviors. And, it's interesting if we think of how they developed in the first place. So we took on beliefs about ourselves because of the experiences we had in life. And we created behaviors in order to cope with the experiences in life, to get more of what we wanted, or to, try and avoid the things that were harmful or painful. And so we're still in that situation, even though we're not 9 months old or 2 years old, or 13 years old. Doesn't matter what age we're at, we still come at beliefs and behaviors in the same way we did right after we were first born. We experience them, and then we try to use them to either create the safety and the success that we want in life, or to avoid the hurt and those kinds of things. So what kind of examples of beliefs and behaviors are people posting that are keeping them from getting what they want out of life?
So Don says, when I don't reach out to my support network, I feel lonely and stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Donna said that she's not book smart, and book smart, of course, in quotes.
Mm-hmm.
And Storm had a follow-up that she's learned that she's smart and her heart is better for learning than her head.
Great. So, these are the kinds of things that, when we're not in touch with our beliefs and behaviors, that has a major influence on how we live our life. And there are lots of beliefs and behaviors that we have. And when we become more conscious and we start to think about these things, it's amazing what we'll come up with. In every situation where we've propelled ourselves forward, if we'll just stop at the end and say, how did I get here? We'll be able to say, oh, well, I got here because either of some belief or some behaviors, or a combination of the two. And every time we've come up against the edge of our comfort zone and gone back in and didn't get what we want out of life, same thing, if we stop for a second and say, what is it that has kept me from doing this? What have I allowed to keep me from getting what I want? Then, once we become aware of these things, we can do, more to expand our comfort zone. And so let's see what we can do to get a little bit more aware of these beliefs and behaviors. So our first assignment, we're going to have 2 assignments, and the first one has 2 parts, and they're kind of identical almost. So the first thing, and you can do this now if you want in the chat box, you can write it down on a piece of paper, but it's to make a list of 3 to 5 beliefs that support us in getting what we want in life. And so really, these are beliefs now. So these are things that we think about ourselves. So, it might be that I'm book smart. Turin said, that she can do anything she wants if she puts her mind to it. She can be really accomplished. For me, I think I'm an incredibly caring individual. I think I believe I have a lot of empathy, and that I can understand how other people are feeling, or what other people are experiencing. Other beliefs that I have about myself, I believe that I I can solve any problem if I just put my mind to it, you know? And what's interesting about it is beliefs and behaviors are not good or bad. They're just sort of situational. So I remember in the guest events, I used to use it as an example. You know, if I'm on a team at work that needs to come up with, 10 taglines for a new product, you want me on your team because I can come up with 100 taglines. And then if you need 100 more, I can do that too. So it's a really great thing that I believe that I can solve a problem and act like that. But when I'm with my daughter and she just broke up with her boyfriend, she doesn't want any of my solutions, right? She just wants me to hold her and comfort her and tell her everything's going to be okay, even though I don't know that everything's going to be okay because I don't have that solution yet. And so, this beliefs and behaviors can be good or bad depending on, or functional or not functional depending on the situation. So the first thing is we're going to make a list of 3 to 5 beliefs that support us in getting what we want out of life. And then we're going to add to that list 3 to 5 behaviors. And of course, behaviors are different. Those are things that we do. So there are things like I ask for what I want, I speak up, I have curiosity, I create boundaries. Those are all the kinds of behaviors that can tend to help us to get what we want out of life. So we're going to make these lists, and then we're going to post them in a bunch of places because it's so easy for this stuff to fall back into our subconscious or unconscious. And we really, if we're going to break through our comfort zone and we need a tool to support us, this is one of the great tools to have this list. And so we want to be mindful of these beliefs and behaviors because they help us propel ourselves forward and get what we want. And, if we're going to see if we're ever stuck, one of the things we can do is go to this list and say, okay, right now I'm stuck. What are my beliefs and behaviors that propel me forward? And is there any one of these or a combination of these that I can use? So when you come up against the edge of your comfort zone, look at your list and pick a belief or behavior or a combination of them that'll support you to break through. And as you go about this over the next few months, add to the list as you discover new beliefs and behaviors that are already inside of you that actually help you achieve what you want, or think of ones that you've newly created or believed about yourself. So maybe you weren't the kind of person who asked for what you needed in the past, and you've decided, you know what, that's one of the ways to get out of my comfort zone is to get the support I need. And so you start asking for things, and now you have a new belief that when I ask for what I need, I get things that propel me forward. And I have a new behavior that I speak up when I need something. And you start to build this whole, sort of armamentarium of things that will propel you forward. Now, the second part of our assignment looks like the first, but as you can imagine, instead it starts with a list of beliefs that keep us from getting what we want in our lives. So, my opinion isn't really important. Or when I speak up, I'm often embarrassed, or people think I'm not smart. So beliefs that I'm not smart or my opinion doesn't count, those are really important. And so we're going to write a list of those as well. And as you can imagine, the second part is to write some behaviors that you have that keep you from getting in life. Maybe you're a procrastinator, and so even though you could do whatever it is, you wait and you wait, you wait, it gets harder and harder, and sometimes you don't do it at all. You might be the kind of person who's constantly speaking up and interrupting other people, and your behavior is to not want to hear what other people see or think or feel because you don't want to deal with that. That's an incredibly familiar behavior for me. Before I went to the Pathway seminars, I would avoid any situation where somebody was going to tell me something that was difficult or troubling them because I had enough going on taking care of myself. I didn't need to have to take care of you, and as a caretaker, if I heard you were suffering, I would immediately go into action, and that would take up the time I needed to take care of myself. But I wasn't really aware of this stuff. It just was so natural. And if I had this list of behaviors, I might have begun to see those kinds of things. And so similarly, we're going to post this list in places and be aware of these, become mindful of them so that they're there in the front of our mind. So when we see ourselves doing them, when we go to the refrigerator for the third time after 9 p.m. at night, we're going to say, you know what, that is a behavior that I really need to handle, because it's so easy to just pop the fridge open and take something out and satisfy a craving that we have, and to think about what else we might do earlier in the day so that we didn't feel like that. And so when we're coming up against the edge of our comfort zone, we're going to look at this list of beliefs and behaviors and see what is it, what combination of these things might be keeping us from breaking through. And when you do it, if it turns out it's none of the things on your list, spend a moment and think, well, what else do I need to add to my list? Something else is keeping me from breaking through my comfort zone at this particular time. So add to that list as you discover new things that you're now in touch with that might be keeping you from getting what you want out of life. And more importantly, as you start to change your behavior and start to change your beliefs about yourself, cross those off the list. So you can, say, I no longer keep quiet in situations where I need something. I speak up. It might be challenging at first. It's scary. And we're going to talk about that in a second. So your second assignment is to be taking risks. The only way to break through our beliefs and behaviors is to do things that take us outside our comfort zone. We talk a lot about this at the Pathway seminars. And so what's interesting is you're going to tackle this from both directions. So you're going to be aware of your beliefs and behaviors that keep you from, pushing through the edge of your comfort zone. And your second assignment is to take some risks that basically force you to let go of some of those beliefs and behaviors and just let go of the outcome. Because every time you take a risk and let go of the outcome, regardless of what outcome you get, you strengthen a belief that you can handle it. So those of you who were here a couple of weeks ago when we did Lemonade number 4, which was about trust, you remember we talked about all of these things. And if you need help around this, reminding yourself, or if you haven't seen that one and you're just here at Lemonade number 8, go back and watch Lemonade series number 4 on trust. We'll do a really quick little refresher. So we all have fears, and we think it's our fears that hold us back from taking those risks, from getting outside our comfort zone, but it's really the underlying belief. So here we are back to beliefs and behaviors. Many of us have this underlying belief that if what I fear actually happens, I can't handle it. I'll just go to pieces. I'll get depressed. I'll lose my relationships, all sorts of things that I just can't handle. And we talked about in the 4th Lemonade that, one of the things we know is we can handle it, because all of us have experienced things that have been challenging, or sometimes things that have been successful, and we've handled all of those. It might not have been pleasant and it might not have been easy, but we've come through it and we're better for it. And so the big part about taking these risks is it strengthens a really important belief that I can handle it. No matter what outcome I get, I can handle it. So whether I get what I tried for or not, I can handle it. And every time I experience it in a way where I didn't get what I wanted, I can try something different the next time, and then maybe I'll get the outcome. But it's the action, it's the risking, it's the change in behavior that helps us to strengthen and expand our comfort zone. If we stay in our comfort zone, life passes us by without us being fully in it. And that's not great for any one of us. So one of the ways of thinking about risks can be large, they can be small. The larger the risk, the more it expands our comfort zone. The larger the risk, the more anxiety it causes, the more strength we need, the more courage, the more power in order to get there. Whether it's a large or a small risk, every risk expands our comfort zone. So let's take some example of risks. What would be a risk in your life? Write them in the chat box and then give them a number between 1 and 10, with 10 being the biggest risk you can think of and 1 being a smaller risk. And it really doesn't matter, but it's important to take a risk of these risks. Take a mix of these risks, not a risk of these mixes. And think about it. So a small risk for you might be reaching out to a family member just to say hello and let them know you're thinking about them. You do it all the time, but I'm in the middle of something, and right now it might be interrupting me, so that's a risk. A huge risk could be reaching out to a family member you haven't talked to in years, where you're feeling some distance or loneliness, where there's been some issue that you need to deal with, or some connection that you need to make, especially if you're holding on to it. If you think about the fact that I don't have a relationship with this person is one of those places in my life that I feel has not been successful. Now, maybe not having a relationship with somebody like that is actually important for you. You've set a boundary, and that person has violated the boundary often enough that you said, you know what, I love and accept you, but I'm not going to have a relationship with you anymore. So I'm not advocating reaching out to everyone, but I'm saying if it feels like it's not a place that you would call a success, then think about reaching out. So, Corinne, any examples of people having risks and what number they are?
Yeah, we've got a couple coming in. Don't forget to type your risk number, 1 to 10, in there too. And also, I just want to point out before I read these ones, there's a lot of talk of risk in general in this world we live in now.
Yes.
And we're not advocating go out and like lick a subway pole or make out with a stranger. Like, these are all emotional risks that will expand your comfort zone, right?
Yep.
We're not calling on health risks here.
Right.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great ones coming in. So Dawn says, speaking my needs or wants would be a risk level 8 for her.
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey says, asking a family member to stay away during this time when they want to come over. That's a really relevant one. I think a lot of people can relate to.
Absolutely.
No risk level on that one.
That would be a 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's amazing how each, the same risk can be different for different people, or even just the same person with a different time or a different state. Storm says, living with my dad right now has been a risk in itself. Having really deep cleanup conversations regarding my childhood was scary AF, but has led to understanding and closeness, which is great. And she says those were 9s and 10s. Linda said, setting a goal for myself and reaching out to get the support I need to create personal success around eating and exercising, which was an 8. And she said, Storm says again, I haven't hugged my dad at all. That would be a 10.
Wow. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks for sharing all those things. And, some of those were really good sheltering in place risks. Because, when we do this, in the pathway seminars, a lot of times people can actually go and take the risks. You can go up to somebody you find attractive and tell them. You can connect with somebody. You can, do some things that is much more difficult for us. But there are all sorts of risks that we can do sheltering in place, taking care of ourselves, reaching out for support. That huge one that Kelsey said about, saying to people, it's not safe for you to come here, especially when you have small kids or somebody in the family, has some higher risk exposure. But for all of us, the telling people who are breaking rules, that you see them breaking rules, and asking them to not break rules in your environment is a huge risk for all of us. Some people are great. I think of my stepmom. My stepmom is really, she just speaks her mind all the time. Like, she'll ask for things without, it seems to me, without giving thought to how inconvenient it would be for anybody else. Like, I'll say something to her and she'll immediately say to me, can you order that for me on Amazon? Like, A, I'm going to end up paying for it. And B, she could order it on Amazon, but there's nothing that keeps her from doing that. And you know what? She gets a lot out of life because she asks for things. And we were talking about it last night. And she said, I have this philosophy. If I don't ask for something, the answer is always no. If I do ask for it and the answer is no, I'm no worse off. But a lot of times I get things. And when we need somebody to reduce the price when we go car shopping, or, to get some kind of a bonus when we've had a bad other shopping experience, we always take my stepmom along, because she's just, and in a very nice way, incredibly tenacious about this. So thanks for sharing. So part of this assignment, for those of you who are open to it, and you can even do this while we're sheltering in place, Pathways has this huge opportunity called the Pathways 30 and 30 Challenge. And it's a closed group that you enter into, and only the people inside the group can see this Facebook group. But it's people who agree that they're going to take 30 big or small risks, one a day for 30 days, to really expand their comfort zone and to energize themselves. And here's the Facebook group. And if you go there, you can, ask to join and be accepted in. And you can get all sorts of great support there because there's other people that are always in the midst of their 30-30. Some people share every day. Here's the risk I took. Here's, what happened. Here's how I feel about it. And so the best way to expand our comfort zone is to take risks. And the cool thing about doing that is things that originally were outside your comfort zone then can become inside your comfort zone. And one way I think about this, and then we're going to take your questions, is, when you don't know what beliefs and behaviors you are exhibiting, and you don't understand why you're not getting the things you want out of life, you're in a space that we call unconscious incompetence. Like, I'm not good at something and I don't know why. So today, if you do the first two assignments, 1A and 1B, you may be starting to see, becoming conscious about it. Oh, okay, I know in the things that I'm not getting out of life, at least I know I'm conscious about why I'm not getting those. I have these beliefs and behaviors that I'm allowing to get in the way. And you move from unconscious incompetence to conscious incompetence, and now you're in control. And when you take risks, you start moving yourselves into a space we call conscious competence. I understand it, I'm in control, and I'm starting to get good at it, right? And then if you do it long enough, you'll move yourself into a spot called unconscious competence, where it's such a part of you that whenever the situation comes up, you just move fluidly into it. You don't even have to think about, what do I need to get what I want out of life? And so it's a beautiful way to think about it. It's not good or bad. It's just the spot, one of those 4 spots you're in. And if your goal is to move towards unconscious competence, just take whatever step that you need. And risking is the best way to move. Once you're conscious about why it is you're holding yourself back, start risking to move yourself on. So that's the end of my presentation for today, right? Any questions you have about comfort zones or anything else in the chat box, and Taryn and I will try and answer them.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you want to stop sharing just for a second so we can see both our faces
yes,
at once, that would be great. And I've got a couple questions for you. I also want to point out that the 30 and 30 group is only open to grads of Pathways. It's a great source of support. But we don't want to tease you with that too. So if you are not a graduate and you're interested, you can email office@pathwaysseminars.com and get more information about.
Yeah, I'm sure Sue
that.
and the office staff would love to support you around having your own personal 30 and 30.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, we do have a couple of comments and actually some risks that people are taking right now to share. So one of the risks that Becky shared earlier was interesting because I think you brought up a great point, right? We're at home, so it can be harder to interact with people. And Becky shared that I had actually helped her do a risk. She said, I tend to think that what matters to me doesn't matter to anyone else. Oh, okay, someone's at the door. Sorry about that. Sharing Taekwondo with Turin when it is something I love, I am not entirely confident my skill level, was a big deal. And that came about because I had asked for support and surprises and, new ways of entertainment, and Becky totally jumped out. So it actually turned out that we were both taking risks. I was taking a risk by asking for that support. Becky was taking a risk by teaching a new skill to me. And it was win-win because we both got to work with nunchucks yesterday. So,
whoa.
Yeah. But what a great point, Becky. And it's interesting to see how one person's risk can affect another person or give the other person a reason to take a risk.
Yeah. Well, and something that Becky said at the beginning is, you said she wasn't confident about her skill or how it might be taken, how it might
Mhm.
be accepted. And, so often we let the reaction the other person have um, feed our beliefs about ourselves, so Amy, my fiance, showed me something yesterday. We have this little thing we get from story people online every day. It's a little sort of drawing with a comment, and it said, "I don't care how you dance as long as you dance with me." And of course, I've always thought I dance like a really uncoordinated person. Sometimes my son, whenever we do pathways together, he always goes behind me, and he's really a cool dancer, and I'm like really awkward. And I've tried to let go of that because when somebody looks at me and says, "Oh, I'm an awkward," you look awkward. That's their perception. That's their belief. That's their behavior. It's not mine. And so often we let that influence us. And a big part of risking is letting go of how other people feel about the risk that we take or the actions that we're having. And so there is a perfect example. Even though Becky was up against the border of her comfort zone around sharing Taekwondo with you, she went ahead and did it and, strengthened that piece for her.
Mhm.
What else you got?
Yeah. And just to add to your point too, the the judgment often seems to come from people who aren't taking risks or who are judging themselves also for, not being the one to take that risk or comfortably dance however they want to.
Right. Absolutely true.
Yeah. So Lauren says, this is a 10 risk for sharing. I recently broke the stay at home mandate by going to my mom's for Passover and also hung out with my sister. Sharing that is a huge 10 because I'm worried about the judgment and flack I might get for breaking the rule.
Well, that's great. And, holding on to that and not letting it go and not taking responsibility for it is, that's one of those heavy little weights we carry around in a bag that we throw over our shoulder every day, and letting go of some of those things. Now, you need to be careful about who you let it go with, and, don't want to do it to cause any harm, but, um, also that makes me think of some things about how often we live in the past. So, there, Lauren, there's a situation where you're carrying this burden around of something you can't do anything about anymore. It happened a few days ago. It's done. Um, I think a question for you would be, you know, what did you learn about yourself from doing this? If the situation arose again, what did you balance? I know for a lot of us, we had to balance I want to be with my family. And this is really important to somebody else I'm really scared that, from a health standpoint, I'm creating a problem for myself or maybe others. And so think about how you balance that out and what beliefs and behaviors you have from your past that helped you decide to go, and was that a positive thing, and did you feel good about that, or did you feel like it was an obligation and you felt bad the whole time and now you're feeling guilty about it, and where that ranks in this whole belief and behaviors piece. And thanks for sharing, and that I'm not judging you. Although I would have liked to have some of your mother's brisket. I know it would have been much better than what I had for my Seder.
Your mouth is maybe judging a little bit then.
My mouth is watering
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now.
um, so as we are sheltering in place or doing self quarantine or self isolation or whatever is going on in our state right now, um, can you talk a little bit about how to encourage others to do risks? Should we be pushing people to do risks? Should we be pulling people out of their comfort zones? I'm totally leading you with this question, but how
Yeah.
do one of the comments we got was, when pushed by others to go outside my comfort zone, I get angry.
Right.
So can you just talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I think the best way to support others in taking risks is to take risks ourselves. I mean, we look to people for examples, and when we're the example, so For my kids and the people in my life, I always have been, since I started Pathways, a big risker. And, I mostly say yes to things because I'm curious, and I want to show that it's okay. And, for people who are feeling stuck, saying to them, you should take a big risk is probably not the thing they need the most. I would ask people that are stuck a lot of questions. I would try and show them that I'm hearing them. I do a lot of active listening with people. I often, there's a way of saying to somebody, you should do this. And I think a better thing to do is, if you've ever been in a similar situation, to say, you know what, when my dad died and I was feeling kind of depressed and I didn't have a lot of energy to go do things, I did some journaling to try and see if I could express those feelings. I tried to think about fun times I had with my dad so that I could remember him in a different way and to help me get out of that space. Instead of saying, well, you should do journaling and you should think about happy things, sometimes you can have people not pull back from you and you just talk about yourself and your experience, and not ask somebody to do something that they're not comfortable doing. The other thing is to just, to draw them out and love and accept them for where they are. If, you say, hey, do you want to do a family FaceTime? And they say, I'm not really up for that. I don't want all that energy. It's too confusing for me. Then I might say, I totally understand. And is there some other way that we can connect with you, and support you? Is there anything you need? And do it from a place of love and acceptance. And, and then get out there and do your own risks. Be a good example.
Awesome. That's a great way to end things and wrap things up for today. So thank you so much, Bruce, for all of that. And remember, you can share this lemonade session with other people. You can watch it again if you really want to. You can host a watch party. And want to wrap things up by saying that Pathways would like to thank A Better World for funding the lemonade sessions. If you see value in these sessions and have any of the financial means to make a donation of any denomination, please consider contributing at pathwaystoabetterworld.com. That's pathwaystoabetterworld.com. Also, if you shop on Amazon, and who isn't shopping on Amazon these days, you can sign up to donate through smile.amazon.com, where a small portion of your purchase will automatically go to support Pathways to a Better World. And that doesn't cost you anything. It just takes a little bit from Amazon and sends it to us. Well, sends it to Pathways to a Better World. I'm not getting checks at my door. All you have to do is add Pathways to a Better World as the recipient at smile.amazon.com, and be sure to reach out. You can email office@pathwaysseminars.com if you want information about coaching or classes or courses. We have a couple that are coming up that will be available digitally, which I am super excited about. And we will be back on Friday with another really exciting lemonade session. So keep an eye out for that. We will see you Friday, same time, same place. And Bruce, one final thing, Dawn wants you to know that she happens to love your dance moves. So thank you all so much. We'll dance our way out of here as we see you again on Friday. Have a great week. Stay safe, everybody.
And I just want to say goodbye to all of my friends. I heard a lot of names of people I know, and I'm so glad you're reaching out and spreading the word and using these things to make your life better and improve the lives of those around you. And Taryn, you're doing a terrific job of hosting these things. I'm glad to be working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been great getting to work with you and see all these people and have some company in my living room.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.